Welcome to ILTV's Weekly Insider. I'm Steve Leibowitz. It was a moment I thought I'd never see in Israel. I moved to Israel just months after the '73 war, exactly 50 years ago this week. That was the war that broke out on Yom Kippur, two Arab invading armies catching Israel by surprise. But we won that war with a heavy price, and the lessons seem to have been learned. And Israel would never again be surprised and invaded. Well, Saturday's Simchat Torah holiday, with most in synagogue or on vacation, came the murderous Hamas surprise attack. Armed gangs of terrorist killers broke through Gaza barriers and entered at least 20 Israeli communities and committed massacres of men, women, and children. For the entire day and into the following days, the terrorists continued to have a presence in a few Israeli border communities. Over 900 dead, over 2,000 wounded, 100 men, women, and children taken hostage to Gaza. Israel has declared war on Hamas. Well, joining us to discuss today are Brigadier General Yossi Cooper-Wasser, former head of the Research Division at Israel Defense Forces Intelligence Corps, and retired IDF Colonel Miri Eisen from the IDF Intelligence Corps, and a former leading advisor in the Prime Minister's office, both, of course, security experts. I've interviewed both of you over the years, but never did I think that we would be speaking after the bloodiest day in Israeli history. I'm glad you're both with intelligence backgrounds. So let me start with a basic question. General Cooper-Wasser, how is it possible, from an intelligence point of view, that Hamas was able to carry out this entire operation without Israeli intelligence catching wind of it?
It's a huge question that I don't know what is exactly the answer, because nobody in Israel now deals with that, and nobody's trying to figure out what happened. We leave that for after the war. But my assessment about it is that we were caught by the three mistakes that we all had done also in Yom Kippur. It's just this repetition of history. First of all, we missed the strategic context. We were under the impression that we are dealing with a deterred organization that is moderating, that is focusing on improving the living conditions in Gaza, that is going to be satisfied that we are allowing workers from Gaza to enter Israel and earn their living. And this is going to be good enough for Hamas in order to keep the quiet. And our strategy was built on having long periods of quiet in between rounds of atrocities that we got used to, and we knew already how to fight. And the truth is that Hamas is a fanatic militant organization, terror organization, committed to killing Israelis savagely, according to an Islamic according to their interpretation of Islam, and that is not unique for them, but also shared by ISIS and others. And this is the real identity of Hamas, and we just sort of wanted to forget about it and ignored it. And this is what made us fall asleep when they were just getting an agreement with us on improving the living conditions in Gaza. Secondly,
Miri,
on the operational level, we didn't understand what is the way of action that they are going to implement in the future. We were caught in believing that it is about rockets and trying to breach into Israel through underground tunnels that we managed to close. And we didn't understand that if you block these options, they will look for a different option. And they found an alternative that was beyond our understanding, and terrible that they did. They did that, in my mind, with a lot of support of the Iranians and maybe Hezbollah as well.
This idea of breaching
the fence.
General, we'll get to that soon, but I wanted to ask, from what I understood in the pre-broadcast time, the two of you were having a bit of a chat, and I was kind of listening. From what I understood, you guys actually toured the Gaza border not that many months ago, I guess part of an army visit there. Colonel Eisen, where was the security fence? We've invested billions in the electronics and in all of the different apparatus around the border. I would have thought that that border is impenetrable. What happened?
Steve, that means that you've never been with me at the border. Because when I stand on that border, and with all of my friends who live in and around it, who are in devastated, broken families right now, I'm the one who stood both at that border and at the Lebanese border. And I've always said there is no wall high enough. And at the end, you can go over a wall and under a wall. And I think the one thing we don't understand about terror organizations, and I'm not admiring this is part of the challenge that we've had over the last 70 years, is that terror organizations are innovative, meaning you try to do counterterrorism in a variety of ways, and they try to invent ways to get past it. So it wasn't that never thought that the wall itself, the fence itself, all of the different capabilities are impenetrable. They are, and they were penetrated. It's much more in that sense what we talked about, what General Kuperwasser was talking about before, which is at the end, it's what you look for. In a failure, one of the biggest things that happens in a failure is that you don't look for something, and usually you won't see it. So you may have a lot of signs there, but you won't see it. I think that in addition to that, Steve, I don't want to go into the nitty gritty of it because we're still in a war, and not because of the Gaza Strip, but because we're still in that stage of tension, and Israel has a multiple sensor capability also up north. And in discussing right now our understanding of how they got through, I don't want to give that kind of information now to anybody else. We're thinking about it. We're going to be way better. We're also a learning society, and we're not here to learn the war that was, but to be able to face the future threat, or what I called it before, innovative terrorism. So, I mean, let's discuss afterwards, the 6 after the war, what was, and as we look into it right now, any place is always, you always have to take that into account. That has to be part of what you look at. And then it's a question of the deployment of your forces, how you understand that. And here at the end, there was a combination that all of them failed together.
We're going to look at the war possibilities and what shape that'll take soon. But before we do, General Kuperwasser, I wanted to ask this. It just seemed like an impossibly long time for Israel to bring the event to an end. Once the terror attack was launched, the police, army, special forces, all kinds of forces were involved in trying to end this. And it took days, literally, for it to be neutralized. Would you have expected that kind of a result?
I was not surprised with that, unfortunately, because the mess that was created by the invasion of the terrorists was immense. They invaded simultaneously. This was the tactic they employed, the swarm tactic, that causes so many centers of atrocities at the same time. And it took a long time to understand who is where, what's going on exactly. It was not easy to build a situation picture right away, and especially since we were not prepared for such an eventuality, to such an event. So it took us time to really understand what's going on, to bring in the necessary forces, to divide them into the different arenas that were going on at the same time. Look, there was something like 30 centers where something was going on simultaneously. It took time, and the units were not prepared for that purpose in advance. So they had to take all kinds of units from here, units from there. It took them several hours just to decide who's in charge in every place. And unfortunately, this is the result of being caught on...
General, we're going to have to pause just for a moment because we have a Tseva Adom, we have a red alert here in the studio, and we'll be going to a safe place, and we'll be coming right back in a moment. And we're back from the barrage. Miri, before we turn to the issue of the declaration of war, there were families inside bomb shelters with terrorist gangs in control of their communities. They were calling TV stations in desperation. And the army and police seemed so slow at arriving, or not at all. Local security committees dealt with terrorist commandos. Who would have even thought? I mean, is the whole idea even comprehensible to you?
I don't think it's comprehensible to anybody, but I do want to be clear, and I don't want to say that I have thick skin. I don't. I'm hurting heart very bad. in the scenarios that both the Israeli Defense Forces, but also places that Yossi serves in, that I've served in, also in the civilian community, we've built the scenarios of something very, very similar, but we were looking at Hezbollah, the terror hybrid organization from the north. This idea of multiple attacks on multiple communities, of going in, of murdering people, of conquering them, of at the same time barrage of rockets. I have to say, building those scenarios, and we always knew that then it takes several days. They're trying to create chaos, create havoc, which they do. And I want to say, we always knew it takes the 3-4 days. And in that, I feel much more, I would say, calm than most Israelis. I know we have the capability. I know we'll bring it back. It doesn't help to the people in trauma, to the people who are dead, to the hostages, to my friends who live all around. I'm avoiding the pictures, by the way. You may have them on the side of the screen right now. I do not watch it. I cannot do it for my mental health. I have too many friends that their parents were murdered, their grandparents were murdered. So when I look at that, as I say, yes, the response is, it looks slow, but that was the idea of this kind of coordinated, prepared attack, which we understood as a scenario to the north. And I don't think we took into account in this kind of way, as we were lulled by Hamas into having us think that they're not a murderous terrorist group.
All right. General Kupperwasser, the government has now declared a state of war against Gaza. We're pounding Gaza from the air. We've done that before. We've imposed a full blockade. No food, no water, electricity entering the Gaza Strip. There's a great deal of talk about knocking out Hamas. How and when is that going to happen?
Well, we are already putting pressure, heavy pressure on Hamas in the ways you described just now, and mainly by bombing their positions in the Gaza Strip in unprecedented bombing, much greater than what we did in the past. It causes them a lot of damage. They are paying the price of what they've prepared and carried out. They definitely deserve this price. And we will make sure that Hamas will not be able to rearm itself, probably will lose control of Gaza. We are not going to do it necessarily by ourselves, but it's going to be that weakened that they might lose control of Gaza, and definitely not being able to rearm themselves and perform this kind of terror attacks in the future. That is the most important thing. And I hope that this siege will force Hamas to give back the hostages. It's much better than having an exchange deal in which they would be victorious and successful in releasing their prisoners. So,
Miri,
make sure that
No, it's okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just trying to understand. So, Miri, if the plan is carried out, basically force Hamas surrender, no water, no electricity, no nothing, level the cities from the air, won't it be necessary to send in ground troops to actually secure Gaza if we're going to take Hamas out? And then what would be the new reality on the ground?
So I'm going to be a little different from what Yossi said before. I'm going to remind us all that there are 2.2 million people in the Gaza Strip. We are not, I don't know what the word would be right now, erasing the Gaza Strip. We are still doing, and that's amazing, not only pinpointed targeting, but we're also giving early warning targeting. And I say all of that because the pinpointing and the early warning and telling people leave because we are about to bomb there, there are 2 million people there. So a ground incursion is because we're going after the Hamas infrastructure, and we're doing two things differently, I think, in that sense. Already now we're doing something that the IDF has never done before. We are attacking the Hamas infrastructure inside the Gaza Strip, where they use the women and children of the Gaza Strip as human shields, where they use the mosque, the school, the hospital as something to protect them because they are a terror organization. And we are announcing we're going to attack the mosque. And the IDF are putting out now, for the first time ever, that they are saying we attacked Hamas infrastructure at a mosque. We attacked Hamas infrastructure at a school, at a hospital, because that's where they hide all of their caches. They are a terror organization. They use their own people. I could only feel sorry for the Palestinians.
What did we call it?
say that
Knocking on the roof? We called it knocking on the roof, where we would give them warning.
So we're
None of
not
that
doing
anymore.
it, absolutely. But here we're talking about that was knocking on the roof at the house of somebody, at the apartment building. We have been attacking the type of sites, which are sites that in the past we did not do so, because at the end it's really hard to come and say, I attacked a mosque. That is where they're hiding behind. Did you just see over the last 4 days what murdering, butchering terrorists do? There are 25, 30,000 Hamas fighters. The ground incursion is you need to go in, you need to knock that down, you need to find it out, and it's going to be with more casualties on the Israeli side, but you can't leave it. And having said all of that, it doesn't mean that Hamas will be erased.
Let us turn our attention to the north. General Kupperwasser, so far the northern front has been pretty quiet, although there was an incident yesterday. An officer was killed. There was an exchange of shelling between Israel and Hezbollah. Do you expect that Hezbollah is going to join the war? And if so, is Israel ready for a multi-pronged threat? We seem like we're having trouble with just one threat at a time.
First of all, Israel is ready for a multi-pronged threat. We have mobilized forces and we are deployed along the Lebanese border. Actually, should I say, along the Hezbollah border in a fortified manner, and we are prepared. That said, we don't want it to explode, and we make it clear to Hezbollah and to everybody else, including through our American friends, that they shouldn't interfere. They are testing the water. They are trying to see what's going to happen. So yesterday we had a couple of attacks carried out by Hezbollah and by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad with Hezbollah consent. And we had to retaliate. And what we are doing is that we retaliate fiercely and immediately to deliver the message clearly and loudly that we are not going to tolerate any such activity, and we hope that this is going to deter Hezbollah from testing the water any further. But, we are facing an axis led by Iran.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. Exactly. Miri, the Israeli leaders have been saying that Iran is behind the sneak attack in Gaza. There were secret meetings and so on. If so, are we not going to make Iran directly pay a price for this atrocity to our people?
Steve, so you want us to start the war with Hezbollah, 10 times stronger than Hamas, open a front with Iran, a country of 90 million people? This is the world we live in. What we need to do
but
is
this was the bloodiest day in
allies.
The bloodiest day in Israeli history. This is a 9/11 moment. America captured countries.
It absolutely is. And I also think that we've learned a lot in that sense, not just from the 9/11 moment, but in the aftermath of that. The decision-making is not something that's ever going to be easy. I said before, I don't think that you can erase Hamas because you're going to have 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and what to do? They support murderous Hamas. Are we going to erase Lebanon off the face of the earth? Hezbollah, in that sense, as they sit there, and add in the Iranians. We've been enacting over years, an ongoing campaign, both in the media in that sense, but overwhelmingly with military capability against Iran as the formidable state-sponsored terrorism country in the world.
Well,
and it's a country, and we need to continue to do so. But that doesn't mean that right now we go and attack Iran. That is a huge question, because that answer is something that, Steve, at the end, we also both want to exist, want to be here. It isn't that we deter everybody. We didn't deter Hamas on Saturday morning. They seem to be coordinated at a certain level, certainly with Hezbollah and with Iran. You have to do things and you have to be strong. That doesn't mean attacking everybody. And I don't want anybody to think otherwise, but I also understand that there are limitations to force.
All right, General Kupperwasser, the U.S. sent an aircraft carrier to the region. Can you anticipate a scenario that it might actually be needed in the coming months, days, weeks?
Well, first of all, it is needed right now as an element of the deterrence vis-a-vis Iran and Hezbollah, and I think that is the main purpose for bringing it. And it is necessary because what led to the situation where Hamas had decided to launch this kind of a terror attack was that they were under the impression that the West is weak and getting weaker. That was their impression, the feeble reaction of the West to the Iranian progress on the nuclear project, the lack of response to the Iranian strengthening in the region, its coordination, its resumption of relations with Saudi Arabia, the lack of reaction to the growing relations between...
General, they tell us we're out of time, but before I go, I just wanted to ask each of you, just for... we have a safe room again. And we're back after yet a second pause because of rocket fire from Gaza. We're just about out of time. General Kuperwasser, if I could ask you this. Many in Israel are asking, wouldn't it be best to face this war with a national emergency government, opposition and coalition going at this together? What would be your advice? Does that sound like a good idea to you?
Sounds like an excellent idea, and I think they should form this government as soon as possible, and I believe that it is going to be formed in spite of all the difficulties. This is going to be overcome. There's no other way. We got to have a unity government because this is such a decisive and historic move that we need to have everybody in Israel together, and everybody in Israel is together. Everybody got mobilized without any problem. All the fears that some reservists are not going to come and things like that were totally forgotten. Immediately, everybody went to the military. Everybody is volunteering to donate blood to help those who were evacuated from the area around Gaza. For everything, there's a feeling that we have to do something together to win.
General, sorry we're out of time. I sure hope you'll be back, especially during this war and after we've won this war. That's all the time we have today. Thank you to Colonel Miri Eisen and Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser. I'm Steve Liebowitz, and this was ILTV's Insider. For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching, and shalom from Israel.